Office. This is an overview of the Hub Office. The Office for Historically Underutilized Businesses promotes diversity and inclusion in state government procurement and contracting. The main roles of the Hub Office include certification of historically underutilized businesses and North Carolina small business enterprises. We also do advocacy and business development services, compliance and reporting, and Minority Business Development Agency Business Center. That is um, a grant that from the U.S. Department of Commerce that our office administers and serves uh, firms around the state that are already established and are seeking to do more business either with the federal government or internationally. Um, we want to talk a little bit about what a hub vendor is. We talk about hub and we talk about historically underutilized businesses. We want to make sure that you understand what we're talking about when we say that. So the certification is based on a state statute, North Carolina NC uh, General Statute 143, 128.4. And in that statute, it identifies the certification categories, and it says that to be certified, the firm has to be owned 51% or more by individuals in the certification categories, and that management and daily control of the business must be um, in the hands of at least one of those eligible owners. In order to count dollars spent with hubs, they need to be certified. So, if we're seeking to get our 10% goal, which we'll talk about in a little bit, those vendors used have to be certified. So the certification categories that we have are Black, Hispanic, Asian American, American Indian, and we look at these categories first, and if ownership falls into these categories, that's the certification category. Uh, Businesses do not get multiple categories for certification; they just get one of them. If they do not fall into one of those four categories, then we look at gender of the owners, and if they are female, then we would count that category. If the ownerships are none of those minority categories or female, then we look at disabled and disadvantaged. There's not really a priority of disabled over disadvantaged. We just see more applications from the disabled point of view than we do disadvantaged. There's also an employee stock ownership plan certification category. That's a fairly new one. There are actually no current firms certified with that category, and it is based on ownership only, not control. And it's 51% of the active staff that are members of the stock ownership plan. There are also two self-identified categories. Again, these are not hub certification categories. They are just business classifications, and they are self-designations. So disabled business enterprise, that's a nonprofit, as well as nonprofit work centers for the blind and severely disabled are the two categories that we capture spending information for these types of organizations by general statute. We need to capture those information, that information. These are not hub certified firms because they're nonprofits. We do not certify nonprofits. We capture the spending, but it's not counted towards hub dollars or hub participation. And please note that minority is not a certification category, but the individual Black, Hispanic, Asian American, American Indian, those are certification categories. So we have vendors in almost every county in the state for hub vendors that are certified. The on this map, the darker the color, the darker the green, the more certified firms we have. Probably not surprising that our more urban areas have the most hub vendors. Mecklenburg County, Wake County, Guilford County are the highest three counties that have hub vendors. This map also indicates whether it's an urban area, urban county, suburban county, or a rural county. And as of 2 days ago, we had just over 7,000 firms that were Hub certified. Looking at the legislative background, the goal of 10% of spending being done with Hub vendors comes from executive orders, and it has since the Hub program went into effect. So the current goal is 10%, and that's established in Executive Order number 25. General Statute 14348 is the state policy to encourage the use of small and historically underutilized businesses, and also talks about reporting requirements. General Statute 143-128.4 is the statewide uniform certification statute, and it defines historically underutilized business. And it says that the Department of Administration certifies hubs and maintains the database, and that only certified hubs count towards minority business participation. So when we say they have to be certified in order to count, this is where that comes from. So a little bit of basics when it comes to reporting. Again, the state policy encourages the use of historically underutilized businesses in the purchases of goods and services. Reporting covers purchases from term contracts and open market contracts for the current fiscal year, and purchases from non-governmental entities count towards total purchases. So you would not count spending that you did with a county or a public university or a community college towards your total spend when you're submitting reports. And only firms certified by the Hub office count towards Hub participation. We tend to look at that at the time that the check was written to the vendor or that money was transferred to the vendor as to when they need to have that certification. Reports are submitted on a quarterly basis, and they use the electronic vendor portal system, which we'll cover in a little bit. There are two types of Hub reporting: purchases of goods and services, which are covered by the statutes and the executive order that we just talked about, and that are covered today in this webinar. Construction spending is not covered in this webinar, but it is required of every public entity that spends $30,000 or more on new construction, repairs on buildings, or renovations of buildings. That's a totally different set of trainings. We're not going to go into that any more than we are right now. We're going to focus on goods and services today. So looking at our goods and services spending for fiscal year 22-23, we had a percent spending statewide of 6.59% with $716 million in spend with Hub vendors. That percentage did not meet the state 10% goal. We have actually not met state 10% goal, but there are organizations, state agencies, community colleges, universities, and school systems that have met the 10% goal. And it's a continual goal. Once you meet it, you're not done. It's continuous throughout the year and year over year. So we are still have work to do. And looking at the most recent data that we have for fiscal year 23-24, we still have agencies that have not submitted all of their information, and a fair amount of school systems have not submitted all their information. We have reached out to them, and we will continue to reach out to them to encourage them to report. It's a requirement, so it's disappointing to have to encourage people to report, but there's been a lot of turnover and systems issues in the past year, and trying to make sure that people are trained on how to do the work is important and sometimes challenging to reach the right people to get them trained. So for last fiscal year, 23-24, this is as of a couple of days ago, Overall, we spent $12 billion, and we spent $874 million with hub vendors, and the percent that we spent was 6.98%. Again, we still have numbers coming in. We still have to verify some of these. So these are likely not the final numbers, but we're hoping that they are pretty darn close. Again, it's a big increase in dollars spent. There's a little bit of increase in the hub participation, and we still have a ways to go to achieve the 10% goal. This does only count hubs that are certified. Okay. Looking at the reporting due dates, these dates are pretty consistent. The only times they've ever changed is when a hurricane came through and wreaked havoc with a number of organizations. Helene was one of them, but we've had other hurricanes in the past that have required us to be a little bit more flexible on when these due dates come up. But if you're not affected by the hurricane, then you would be expected to submit these at the time that they are due. And we've had a lot of the Hurricane Helene related school systems or impacted school systems that have reported. So if they can report after all the damage that they have taken and all the efforts that they're making to recover, then it feels like the folks who have not dealt with that should also be able to get those reports in. The reports are always due 30 days after the quarter ends. So first quarter is July 1 through September 30th. That due date is October 30th. Quarter two covers October 1st through December 31st. That's the quarter that we're reporting on for right now. For this fiscal year, that due date is January 30th. Third quarter covers January 1 through March 31st. That due date is April 30th. Fourth quarter is April 1st to June 30th, and that due date is July 30th. These dates can always be found on the Hub Office website, and the link to the site where it's located is included in the PDF that we sent out yesterday. So those links should be live. So if you need to see this on the website itself, you can click on that and go there. We do send out reporting due dates by email each quarter, reminders for that. Typically 2 or 3 times, we will send out reminders to the contacts that we have. And we base our contacts that we use, that we email these out based on the purchasing director and the purchasing group for each organization. And as we've seen, there has been a fair amount of turnover, a lot of retirements this year, a lot of new people coming into roles, and we don't necessarily always get informed about when that happens. Sometimes we will get bounce backs to let us know that an email is going to somebody who's no longer there, but we don't necessarily know who the right person is in each organization to do that. So we really appreciate it when people give us a heads up that, hey, I'm going to be leaving, and it's going to be such and such a date. Most times people don't know who their replacement is going to be, but there should be a backup that everybody has in case that happens, because people get sick, people go on vacation, sometimes they win the lottery, and we have had people pass away who have been responsible for doing the reporting. So it's good idea to have multiple people, and maybe 2 or 3 in your organization who understand when the reports are due and how to complete them. And Leslie, I see your hand up, and is it about a chat question?
It is. It's a question from Crystal Berry. Is 10% the goal per fiscal year, 2.5% per quarter, or 10% per quarter?
It really, it is an annual goal 2.5% per quarter will not get you there. You may get there if you get like 14% in one quarter and less than 10% in another quarter, but it's rolling. So it adds up the total dollar amount that you spent for the year and the total hub amount that you spent for the year, and does the calculation towards the 10% based off of that. And you can see it on a quarterly basis, and you can pull the information out of EVP to calculate your ongoing percentage, but EVP does not provide that to you like a year-to-date basis. So it does take a little bit of effort on your part to see that on as the year is moving through. Does that make sense, Crystal? Okay. Leslie, were there any more questions?
That is the only question we have in the chat for now.
Okay, great. Well, let's move forward here. So who reports? We have 11 cabinet agencies, 9 council of state agencies, and actually, this year, 11 cabinet agencies was for last year. Now, with State Bureau of the SBI being a cabinet agency, we're now going to have 12 cabinet agencies, 9 council of state agencies, 9 support agencies, 19 public universities or university institutions, 58 community colleges, 115 school systems, and 5 nonprofits. So as you can see, that's a fair amount of folks that we have to keep track of in terms of who is the right contact for those organizations. So if you can be proactive and let us know who the best contacts are, that will be great, so that we can inform them about trainings and reminders for upcoming reporting. Okay, so let's move forward here. What is reported? When we're looking at reports, we look at term contracts, and those are state term contracts, the ones that the North Carolina Division of Purchase and Contract manages. Open market contracts purchases. So you put it out for bid, or you say, hey, it's a small purchase and I want to invite a few people to give me some quotes. Those would be considered the open market purchases. Then you've got, it's for non-governmental entities. So we're looking at whether they're private companies or nonprofits, spending that would be bid out that they would use. So we're not talking about a sheriff's department being somebody that you spend money with, or a municipality. We're talking about a company or a nonprofit. And we are looking at actual payments. So actual payments made. We're not saying, okay, we've got a 5-year purchase order and it's for $100,000, so that's $500,000 for the 5 years. That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at money out the door to the actual vendor, and how the purchases are made. They could be made by purchase order payments, direct payments. You wrote a check, or you had an electronic transfer of money, or P-card payments are all fair game for reporting. And the state term contracts can be found on the North Carolina Purchase and Contract website, and the vendors that are Hub certified are identified on that list. And again, here is that link, and it will indicate if they are Hub certified. There are several Hub vendors that are Hub certified that have state term contracts. A couple off the top of my head I can think of are the HVAC air filters, and I believe the office supplies are ones that are available. I think there are also some for furniture as well. There's a lot of vendors on that contract, but I believe there are some Hub vendors on that. So please, if you are using Forms and Supply, make sure that you're capturing that spend, because uh, they are the ones on the office supply state term contract. And if you're using office supplies, that's an easy way to get some hub spend. Nonprofits aren't able to use state term contracts, but all the other school systems, community colleges, universities, state agencies would be able to benefit from that. So here are some examples of goods and services spending that are not term contract. There's commodities that are tangible goods, something you can touch, sit on, move around. If it's physical, tangible, that would be considered a commodity. That could be supplies, equipment, furniture, computers, vehicles, medical supplies. And on services, vehicle maintenance or cleaning, janitorial services, landscaping, information technology support, software, medical care, legal services. Those would all be services. There may be some times where it's not totally clear or there's a little bit of overlap. And typically the way that we would look at that is what's the majority of the work being done. You may hire a consultant to do some work for you and give you a product at the end, a report or some banner or something. And it depends on how much of that work is important. Like if you spent $50,000 with a consultant and most of that was they're doing the work to research what they needed to do, and then they provided a hard copy report to you, I would consider that a service because you're not paying for the physical paper, you're paying for the work that went into the ideas on that paper. Hopefully that's clear. So what is not included? We do not count spending with governmental entities as vendors. If any of these show up as vendors in your reports, you need to exclude the spending from your totals because we're looking for things that could be put out to bid and hub vendors could actually bid on. So spending with municipalities, state universities or community colleges, counties, sheriff's departments or local jails, correction enterprises, which is a part of the Department of Adult Correction, and any vendors mandated by General Assembly or other rule that you have to use, we would not count those in our reporting. Personal services such as salaries, wages, benefits, or personal service payments are not included. Neither are aid and public assistance, reserves, or intragovernmental transactions. There are some specific exclusions, things not to count. Workshop and conference expenses and registration fees should not be counted. Those typically are done by organizations where there's not like a lot of competition for that, or there may not be multiple organizations that could bid on it. Some hospital provided services are excluded. Rent and lease agreements are excluded. Electrical services, water and sewer, internet service provider charges, cable TV, those are all excluded, as is inmate tuition, prescription drugs, legal settlements, court costs, pension fund payments, debt service payments. Those are all excluded. I do want to come back to rent and lease. It is possible that you may hire a realtor to help you lease a space. While the rent and lease agreements would not be countable, the money that you spent with a realtor to provide that service to you would be countable. So hopefully that's clear. And if anybody has any questions, please let us know. Tracking subcontractor spending for goods and services. It is encouraged to track utilization of goods and services for subcontractors. Sometimes we'll see that as a term called multi-tier or second tier. That's encouraged. If you're doing that, you must be able to document, track, and report in the same way as you do all your other reports. we call this prime vendors right here. But if it's just, hey, we spent money with FSI, we're counting FSI, they would be considered the prime vendors. And if they had any subcontractor that they were working with, then you would have to report that. And FSI might not be the best example since they're a hub, but maybe Grainger would be an example where they have the overall contract, but they may be getting the products that they provide from a number of different vendors. And some of those vendors may be hub vendors. But we would need to know the date of the purchase, the type of the purchase, state term contract, commodity or service, and the verification that subcontractors were hub certified at the time of payment, and identification of hub category of subcontractors. The hub office does have an example that we do on a quarterly basis of how this can work. And the hub office emails a quarterly report of the CAI IT short-term staffing subcontractor spending report to state agencies and community colleges that use that contract. CAI is just Computer Aid Incorporated. They're the vendor that manages that overall contract. And when we provide the summary of the data that they give us, it comes out looking like this. And we'll list the department that spent money, the total spend, the hub spend, and the hub percentage, but then we'll also break it out by certification category. And this is looking like we have Black, Hispanic, Asian American, American Indian, and female listed there. We don't have disabled or disadvantaged listed there only because none of the vendors that provided services fell into those categories. So we were only providing the ones that that we had seen some spend on. So the Q2 data from CAI has been received by the hub office, and it's underway of being processed. So we don't have an exact time of when that would be ready to go out to the agencies that use this, but I would imagine that probably in the next week or so, we'll be able to get that out and it can be added to your report. So the way that you use this is if you have any spending in here, and I'll use an example of somebody who it wouldn't benefit because they didn't, the report didn't show any spending. So UNC Pembroke had $60,000 of total spend, but there were no hub vendors that they used. So this report, it wouldn't affect them. They would recognize that, yep, there was some spending, but I don't need to add anything to my report. But if we look at one row up for transportation, DOT spent $7 million overall, and 1.9 million of it with hub vendors. So they would look over at the part of the table that shows the spending underneath the category there. And for Asian American and female, they have values in there. They would take these values and they would add them to what they already have for their other spending, just in the Asian American category and the female category. They would not add anything to their total because the CAI spending is already accounted for in their total spend. So they don't have to add that back in. They would just add in the Asian American and the female aspect. And this is the way that it would work for other contracts too. Like the example I used with Grainger. If Grainger spent some money and they reported it in a way that you could use like this, you would be able to report just what they used in their hub categories and add it to your values, but you wouldn't have to re-add the total amount that you spent for Grainger back into that. So, and we ask that you report this under services, not under term contract for the CAI short-term staffing spending. Do we have any questions about this or about subcontract reporting in general? Okay. We can come back to that if somebody comes up with a question later on, but we'll move forward. So reporting hub spend, we'll look at our data sources, and the data sources depend on your organization. And one of the reasons that we asked for the different types of organizations we had here was so that we could see, do we need to spend much time on these different sources. So community colleges, they use eProcurement and Colleague to get their reports, and their information is linked to the database, to the hub database. So they already have up-to-date information about hub vendors in their systems. Similarly, the state agencies have links to the hub database. So any spending that their reports give them, they know that those reports are already up to date in terms of who's certified and what their category is. The state agencies use the DOT and North Carolina Ports Authority use SAP for their reporting. North Carolina Education Lottery uses Microsoft Dynamics. All other state agencies use the hub spending report system as their reporting data source, and that has actually launched. So it says new version coming soon, but it's actually launched and is usable, and we're encouraging all the hub spending report system agencies to go ahead and report. They had been delayed in reporting for a while, but we're asking them to please go ahead and submit their reports for the periods that we missed. And we'd like to get up to date. So for Q2, we will be expecting them to report by the end of January. The public universities use either Argos, Banner, PeopleSoft, or WebFocus. And then school systems tend to use Link or Sunpack. And there's a couple of exceptions where they use something different. And then there are also some organizations that are using systems that are from the Department of Public Instruction financial system upgrades. I don't think there's a ton of those, but if you are somebody in that state where you're using those new systems or you're developing those systems, the developers need to know about the hub requirements. And if you don't feel comfortable explaining that to them, please feel free to direct them to us, so we can help them understand what it is that's needed. You could also share the information that we provided today, all the screenshots with them, so that they can get a heads up of this is the kind of information that you need. All right. So any P-card purchases, that information comes out of Bank of America's work system. That's not linked to the hub database, unfortunately. So it is a little bit more challenging to verify hub spending from that area. And you may have to take a look at that. And we don't want to lose that information, but the value of it could be overshadowed by the amount of effort that it currently takes to assess how much hub spend there was. One suggestion that I've got is there is a report you can pull, and there's a self-identification of minority or women-owned businesses, and maybe you could take a look at that, and rather than verifying everybody that you spent with, you could maybe focus on those and see, are any of those hub certified? If they're disabled or disadvantaged, you could also look at those. So looking at some of the specific systems, we don't have access to most of these systems. Leslie and I only have access to Hub Spending Report System, SRS. These other systems, the information that we've gotten has been from people who actually have been through these trainings before, have done the reporting, and they gave us screenshots so that we could show them to you. So in Colleague, The commodity codes do matter. The XHUR report depends on them to put purchases in the right categories. That's term contract, commodity, and services. And tracking P-card spending is not currently supported in Colleague. That data would come from Works. Here is what the XHUR report looks like. It's got the percent of total spent by type of purchase, and then it's also got a detailed list of vouchers by hub category. So I believe those are two separate reports that you can pull. But the one on the left, the term contracts, commodities, and services, is what you would use when you're going into EVP to fill that out. Do be a little bit careful about the order of those categories because they may not totally match what it is showing in EVP. And I'm specifically looking at where it shows disabled owned, and then it goes disabled owned business enterprise, nonprofit work center for the blind, and then socially and economically disadvantaged. EVP pulled socially and economically disadvantaged up right under disabled owned, and then disabled owned business enterprise and nonprofit work centers for the blind are separate. So they're not in this order. So just be careful about that. Link Hub reports. This guidance was shared by Kelly Elliott of Surrey County Schools. We want to give her thanks for providing this. We did not have access to this previously, so we appreciate it. She uses Report Builder under the Reports tab in Fund Management to select the desired columns for the report. And she said, note, the budget analysis works the same way, but it has all kinds of columns in the report that you do not need for Hub reporting. And then create a report for Hub services and separate report for Hub supplies. So it sounds like for services and commodities, you would do two separate reports. It doesn't look like there's one specifically for term contract. That has been a challenge for school systems to recognize that some of their spending is on a term contract. We have spoken with the Link developers about that, and it may be possible that in the future there might be some way of indicating that it was a term contract. I'm not aware of that ability currently. Again, this is guidance shared by Kelly Elliott from Surrey County, and she's using Link version 6. And she was talking about creating a report for Hub supplies. So this shows the screen that she uses for identifying what she wants on that report and then what the report actually looked like. See, she says run a purchases category report under reports in FM, which might be financial management, and select all in purchase category and active for Hub status. And then you would use this information to create your report for EVP. And this image that we have here, it shows WBE, Woman Business Enterprise. It's basically female owned is what that is. And then it shows if there was an ethnic code, it would have shown it here, but it's not, it's female owned. And then it shows the order description and the amount and the amount with taxes. So you would, I believe you would only use that amount column. I think, or try to get what you're spending on it. So whatever you spent on it. One of the challenges that I've found with Link is that it doesn't tell you, well, I guess if you're doing the purchasing category report, that would be for commodities, and the services would be, report would be for services. So that might be a little easier than what we've seen in the past. Sunpack has a Hub report instruction document available. And they recommend reporting based on invoices rather than purchases. So when you're selecting how to report, choose invoices. And it's got the ability to, but the report layout is very similar to the EVP Hub Statistics form. And again, you do need to be a little bit careful about the order of that because socially and economically disadvantaged um, is showing up as the last item here. I do note that both for Link and Sunpack, they have the capability to upload a hub file to update hub category information and who is hub certified. Earlier in 2024, the file changed, so it no longer uses the tax IDs. It now uses the EVP company number, and we're trying to work with the developers of EVP to have a way for people who use this to know all the EVP company numbers. We've got the hub file, but a lot of school systems don't necessarily already have the EVP company number built into their systems. So we're trying to see if there's a way that we can make that a little bit easier. Until we do, people won't necessarily be able to use the hub file to update things because they'll be uploading something and that EVP company number will be looking at the tax ID. It's not going to match. So it's not going to find hub vendors there. So for now, if you've uploaded your hub tax ID file in the past, until you get an EVP company field in your system, you may have to use your firms as they currently are that show whether they're certified or not. Now, over time, I think that's going to lead to some inaccuracies. So I'm, of course, motivated to decrease that inaccuracy and try to find a way to make it easier to use. Nonprofits reports are assigned to the support agencies categories. They only report on the General Assembly appropriation amount that they received. And they report on commodities and services, but not on state term contracts since they are not eligible to use those. The Hub Spending Report System, this is the data system used by most state agencies, but not all of them. And one university uses this as well. So this was designed so that data is typically available 10 days after a month or quarter ends. And it captures actual spend from a financial system, from the North Carolina financial system. That's the new system that took over for NCAS. And it covers direct payments and e-procurement purchase orders. And again, it's actual spend that's been sent to the vendors. And summaries are available by quarter and month. And there are PO spend and direct payment reports as well. And there is detailed data by PO line item available that includes the vendor name and hub status. So there can be a lot of line items in those reports. It can be very powerful and you can use it to do a lot of analysis, but it can be a lot of data to work through. The reports available to track spending, there are reports available to track spending with North Carolina Small Business Enterprises. The data from the Hub Spending Report System is transferred into EVP on a quarterly basis. So the Hub SRS users have the benefit of they don't necessarily have to type in the numbers from SRS into EVP. Those numbers will already be there, but it's advised that they review the SRS data to make sure that they think it is capturing everything that they need, or to identify things that are on there that should not be reported, and then they can modify and take those dollars out. They also have the ability to add any P card spend or CAI spend, just like everybody else. So which agencies use Hub SRS? All the cabinet agencies except for DOT. Council of State, all the Council of State agencies use Hub SRS. All the support agencies except for Ports Authority and Education Lottery use SRS, and then School of Science and Math uses it as well. Okay, so we're going to talk about EVP. We're going to move towards EVP now. So here is the image that you come to the North Carolina Electronic Vendor Portal homepage. It's really easy to get to if you need to. I never remember the address. I just open a browser and type in NC EVP, and this is usually what it takes me to. So vendors can register and manage their accounts, including applying for Hub or NCSBE certifications. There's over 40,000 vendors total in the system. About 7,000 of those are Hub certified. A little less than 3,000 are NCSBE certified. So the vendor search, the covers everybody, but you can specify if you want to look for Hub vendors. Agencies and public organizations can post solicitations, tabulations, and award information in EVP, and vendors can respond to solicitations through EVP if that is how you would like them to submit bids. You can search for vendors. It uses a consolidated Hub vendor search that includes Hubs and non-Hubs. This is the only search now for Hub vendors. IPS no longer exists. So if somebody comes to you and said, I found it on IPS, well, they looked at it years ago because IPS doesn't exist. And you're probably better off coming to EVP and doing a search here because the results will be much more up to date. Goods and services Hub spend is also reported using the EVP Hub Statistics app, and we call it Hub Stats for short. So what's needed to access EVP Hub Stats? You need a valid NCID. You could only have one email address associated with that NCID. If you have more than one, that's a problem. It must be set up with a user type of either state employee or local employee. And it must be active, not locked. And agency NCID administrators can set up those NCIDs. There's a list of delegated NCID administrator directory to locate your NCID administrator. And this link will take you to the overall page. But if you know, hey, I'm a school system, I need the local education agencies link, just click on that one. If you're a state agency, including UNC system universities, click on state agencies. I think that would probably also include community colleges, and then counties. Oh, no, counties includes community colleges. So that's where you would go to find out who your NCID administrator is. And as far as I know, that listing of the individuals who are the NCID administrators lists their phone numbers, but it does not list their emails. I think that is mostly a security issue and to reduce phishing and scams. Okay. So what is needed to, this is continuing what is needed to access EVP Hub Stats. Have your authorized purchasing officer submit a completed EVP user maintenance form request, and be sure to select Hub Statistics user under user access level. So you need to select that if you're going to report. The Hub file download access level is optional. That form is processed by the North Carolina Division of Purchase and Contract. So we do not manage that process, but we do have a role in that we approve access to Hub Stats and the Hub file download so that we make sure that the people who should have access to that have access to it. And, you know, somebody who doesn't need it doesn't get it. Okay. And accessing EVP to submit hub reports. To do that, you log into EVP and you use the following URL. So if you're in the PDF, you would click on this link and it should bring you to the login page. You would enter the email address that's associated with the user's NCID and select your email address, or select your email address. It may already be in there if you've used it once. It's not the actual NCID. It's the email address associated with it. So you would still enter your NCID password. And if it auto-populates, you can click sign in. If instructed, you may need to do a multi-factor authentication. And if so, do that and authenticate your access. The EVP dashboard for your organization will appear on the screen after you log in successfully. If you have any issues with logging in, if you're not able to log in, go ahead and contact your NCID administrator to make sure your account is not locked. That's happened to me several times, and I've had to reach out and get it unlocked, and then it worked. And that the user type is set appropriately as state employee or local employee. If that's confirmed and you're not locked and you're set up appropriately and you're still unable to log in, then reach out by email to the email address on the slide. And again, it's an active link in the PDF that we sent out. So you could click on that and it should open an email to send there to ensure that your access to HubStats has been granted, and provide any screenshots of any error messages that you receive. What I've been advised to do is include the links. So get the URL in your screenshot. That sometimes is helpful in establishing where the error took place. And if your access is confirmed and you're still unable to log in, then call the NCDIT help desk. And the number is provided there, and provide any screenshots of any error messages received as requested. And it looks like Leslie, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, John. This is with EVP troubleshooting. Prior to everyone having access, we did have issues with nonprofits logging on. And so Gandhi is asking a question. For nonprofits, will there be a time where they have full access to the EVP site so they can submit their reports?
We are working towards that. It's been taking, a longer time to do that than expected. So until we get to that point, the nonprofits would still be submitting their reports by the spreadsheets that we've provided. It's probably not going to happen anytime soon, Gandhi. I'm sorry about that. There are some other development things that we're working on related to certification management and reporting before we're able to get to that. Okay, so EVP training resources, EVP Hub Goods and Services reporting instructions can be found at the link here, and this is on our web page. No, I think this actually goes to e-procurement. So it's an actual job aid on the e-procurement site, and it provides some good detail and screenshots there. It does include accessing, reviewing, and approving a Hub Statistics record. There are also state procurement user training manuals on posting solicitations, viewing bids that are posted, entering bid tabulations and awards, posting contract extensions, Hub Goods and Services reporting, and searching for registered vendors. Some data entry basics, and just so you know, we will be at the end of the session, we get to show you some screens on the vendor search. So I'm going to see if I can move forward a little more rapidly, but I want to make sure that we cover what we need to, because this might be the point where people are saying, I really need you to spend time on this. But I want to be mindful of our time. EVP data entry only use whole numbers. So if you had spent $1,050.25, round that to $1,050. If it's 49 cents down to 1 cent, round down to the nearest whole number. If it's 50 cents up to 99 cents, round up. So $1,050.75 would round to $1,051. Spending for disabled business enterprises and nonprofit work centers are captured in the report. However, those values are not added to the hub spend for achieving 10%. You may hear me repeat some things throughout the session, and this is one of those that we repeat. We're just trying to do it for emphasis, because if we say it the first time, somebody might not have heard it, and we want to make sure that everybody understands how the numbers are being dealt with. All right, so we're going to move forward here, and we're going to talk about hub statistics. So at this point, to get to this point, you would have already logged in. You would have done multi-factor authentication if you needed to, and it would bring up your home page. And in EVP, on the left side of your screen, you're going to see whatever menus you have access to. You may not see vendor management. You may not see some other things. You may have things that I can't see. But on here, like you all would not see hub certifications or NCSBE certifications, but you should be able to see hub statistics. And once you see your options for your quarterly reports that are in here, you would double click on the quarter that you want to enter your data for. So in the example shown, that's Q4, the one at the bottom. And if you click on the link to your department, it's not going to take you to the report form. It's just going to take you to the profile of your school system. So it's probably better to click on the quarter to open up your page. Once you do that, you'll see a number of items that you can do across the top of the page. You'll be able to see your organization listed at the top. And if you see a different organization, that's a problem. Reach out to Leslie or myself and say, hey, I'm Alamance Burlington School Systems, but when I logged in, it showed me as Edgecombe County Schools. What's going on with that? And we'll be like, that's interesting, and that's an error. So let's figure that out. And we'll have to go back to the EVP developers and the help desk and say, hey, this looks like a problem. What's going on here? Can we fix it? So you probably should not be seeing that, but when we first started, it was something of an issue, and I haven't heard of that until now, but it never hurts to be sure. So anything that you see with a lock next to it is not something you can edit, and that's intentional. So we have had some folks come and say, I can't do anything in here. It doesn't let me do anything. Most times it's because they're trying to click into a field that doesn't allow them to do something. And they may be thinking of the total of all purchases, hub and non-hub, or total purchases of hub. And those are formulas that roll up numbers further down from in the sheet. So again, if you see a lock symbol, you cannot change it directly. Once you do something, it may change because of what you've done, though. So if you're not going to be able to complete your report all at once, you can click Save up at the top, right above your organization name. You could click Save and it'll keep it on the screen if you want to come back to it, or you can say Save and Close. You're like, oh, it's 4:59 and I got to go. You can save it and close it, and you can come back in the morning and continue working on it. If you're all done with it, you can click Approve, and that will submit it to us, and then we will be able to officially say, they've submitted their quarterly report. Until you do that, it's going to show up on our end as pending, and it's not going to be captured towards the hub participation dollars or percent. So we really need to make sure that you approve that. Um, Leslie and I do have some capability to enter data and to approve on behalf of other people. We really prefer not to do that. I mean, for the nonprofits, we don't have an option right now. We have to do that for them. We take the data that they provide, we put it in, and we approve it on their behalf. Some school systems have had that issue, and we've done that for them as well. But it's vastly preferred that you do the data entry yourself. Okay, and the approval yourself. So if you scroll down a little bit, there is a term contract section, and at the top of that, it will list term contract purchases, hub and non-hub. And that is where you would enter dollar amounts, your totals for this section. The term contract total dollars would go there. And then if you had any spending in any of these categories, you would type that value into those categories. If you don't have any spending, just leave it alone. 0 is fine. It will take care of it. Any dollar values that you enter in here, say if you had Hispanic and Asian American, it would add those together to get your term contract purchases for Hub. And again, you'll notice that's a locked field, so you cannot change that. It's a formula, and it adds the values up. Then you've got, if you've got any disabled business enterprise dollars, you would enter those, or nonprofit work centers, and then those dollars as well. Over on the right-hand side, there's a bunch of, all those categories are shown with percentages, and those are all locked. So you can't change those. They will be calculated once you save or approve the report. So if you're going through and you're like, I want to see what this percentage is, or what my total of hub dollars for term contract is, you could enter your dollars in this particular categories, then hit save, and it will calculate this hub total contract purchases item. It works the same way for commodities. There's a commodity purchases hub and non-hub. That's your total spend for commodities. It includes hubs and non-hub dollars. Then you would enter in the dollars in the particular category, and it would count up the hub dollars below once you save that. Okay. And once you've entered all your data and you check it and you say, you know, I'm really sure this is right, I'm ready to approve it, you scroll back up to the top of the screen and you click approve, and it'll show approved by here and approved on. So if I were approving this, it would show my name in approved by, and it would show the date and time that I approved it when I hit approve. So you can go back and edit these things, and you can approve it again. That's okay. There will be an audit trail here, so we know, how many people had entered data and approved it, and we can go back and see what values were before the last person approved it. So if we need to do that, we can. It's helped us out once or twice. We don't have to do that all the time. So when all your data is ready, click approve. When you click approved, your information will show there, and you can make edits as well. Please don't make edits after your Q4 report is submitted. So right now, for the current fiscal year, you can go back to Q1 and Q2 and make edits after you've approved it. But once we get to Q4, please do not make any more edits because Q4, that's the end of it, and we need to move as quickly as we can to get those reports out for the annual report. Leslie, I do see a question about printing the final report.
I'm
Do you
responding to
want to address
Melissa,
that?
right? Yeah, I was actually
Okay.
typing in the chat to Melissa. Thank you for your question. So we have a workaround on how to print the report. I'm going to put a document in the chat for everyone. The easiest way to quote unquote print the report is to print it as a PDF. There's no way to really print the report from directly from EVP, but you can print the report as a PDF. And then if you have to have a tangible paper copy, you can print from there. And I will share that document in the chat.
Mhm. And Lashana asked a question too. Is there a way to undo an edit after approval? Get the original number and start over? I think that's like a question saying, is that the way to do it? That is one way that you could do that. If you know what the error was, you could figure out what the right number is and go in and click on the quarter again from like when you first log in and go to Hubstats, it'll show all your reports. If you click on the quarter that you wanted, that should allow you to make changes and then you can approve it again. Does that make sense, Lashana?
Yes.
Okay, great. Um, okay, so we're going to talk a little bit. So we've run through all our slides for EVP and data entry, and we're closing on our time to be done. If people would like to hang out afterwards, we may be able to do a little bit of a demonstration. So I apologize for not being able to get through it right now, but if you can hang on, we'll try to go through it. So really quickly, we want to talk about hub certification. We talked a little bit about why hubs need to be certified. It's because that's the only way we can count them towards the hub participation percentage. They have to be certified. Occasionally, there are support programs that are only available to certified hubs. During COVID, we had a grant program and only certified hubs or certified DOT, disadvantaged business enterprises, were eligible for those. And there are some other support programs that we need them to be hubs in order to enroll them in. How do they get help with hub certification? We have YouTube webinars or recordings that they can watch, or they can call the hub office website. That main number is staffed by certification team members. And then the hub office email there is also monitored by hub certification staff. Certification process, it's a 4-year certification, and their firms can recertify at the end of that 4-year period. It takes about 45 to 90 days to get certified. There is no fee to be certified. There are some reciprocity options that if they're certified by some other entity like DOT for disadvantaged business enterprise, it makes it a lot easier for them to get hub certified. There's 3 basic steps to get hub certified. All of these are online now. They didn't used to be before the EVP update, but now they have to register an EVP. They have to complete the statewide uniform certification application in EVP, and then they have to upload the required documents in EVP. And the required documents, there's a set that everybody has to submit, and then a subset that they submit based on what type of company they are. A corporation has certain documents, an LLC has different ones, and so do partnerships and franchises. So they have some additional documents they have to provide. So how to find hub vendors is kind of was a question that came up earlier. If you go to EVP, just type in NC space EVP and click the link that comes up. It should bring you here. There's also the direct link is in there. It's not so much different than just doing the search. But up at the top of this image, you can see what that URL is. When you're looking for vendors, you type browse vendor, or you click on the browse vendors button. It'll bring you to this basic search. There is an advanced search, but their basic one just has 6 fields on it. And once you get there, we recommend if you're looking for hub vendors, don't use those first 2 columns worth of fields. That first one with no title over it is a super powerful wildcard, and it will look for what you type in anywhere in the record. And it doesn't care if you also select Hub Certified. It's going to show you whatever it found that was typed in that search box. And it will show you non-hub vendors all day long, even if you choose hub vendors. So please don't use that untitled search field if you want hub vendors. The hub's EVP status probably is not going to matter too much. If you need them to be in e-procurement, I think it may show you that yes, they do have access to e-procurement, but it's not terribly difficult for them to sign up for it. So it may not be something that keeps them from working with you. If you can communicate to them, hey, we do this by e-procurement, so you need to sign up for e-procurement. They can do that. If you want hub vendors, choose the hub certification status, the drop down, and choose certified under hub certification status. You could do that also with NCSBEs if you're trying to make sure that the company you're looking for is a small business. But if you choose hub certification status, select and certified, if you just click search, you'll get all 7,000 hub vendors. If you want to find a hub vendor that is a particular trade and it might have that in their name, you might be looking for janitorial. You could type janitor in there and it would find the companies with janitor in their name. That's not going to find you all the firms that do janitorial services, because most of them currently do not include that in their name, but there are a bunch of hub vendors that do provide those services. And the advanced search would help you find those. So you can search just by this, and the vendor name and that hub certification status, that can go a long way to helping you get started on your search. But let me go back. If you want to get more detailed and say, I need somebody who does a particular commodity, you can, or they're based in a particular county, you can use the advanced search and click on that little arrow right there that's right next, or triangle right next to the word advanced search, and it will open up the advanced search options. There's e-procurement information here, hub NCSBE information, which I don't think you really need so much. You could search by a particular category, but I'm not sure that's something I would advise. There are contractor services you can look up, and you can see if you're looking for a certified general contractor. This is goods and services. So construction contractor information might not be terribly relevant, but the location, the county might be relevant, as well as the commodity codes. The county and the commodity codes and the construction codes, once you click that little button, in the blue button, it will open up another window for you so that you can select the codes that you really want to see, and then it will search based on those codes. There's a couple other steps you need to do. You need to come back to the main screen and then click search, and then it'll search on all the criteria that you've put in there. When it comes back with your data, it will provide it in a table on the website, and you can click on the name of the company to get more information about them, and you can see their hub information in there, or their NCSBE information in there as well, including their certification number. But it also shows you contact information here, and you can export it to Excel, and it includes a little bit more information than what's shown on the screen. If you clicked on the vendor name, you would see this information. It would bring you to their profile. You can see their business characteristics, their contacts, their locations, commodity codes, construction codes, contractor services, and their hub information, or their NCSBE information as well. So if you need to dig down on a particular vendor, that's how you can do that. You can post opportunities on the Hub Office website. If you submit a solicitation in EVP, it's automatically going to go to the Hub solicitation opportunity dashboard. So you don't need to put it in EVP and the Hub Office's bid submission form. If you are not using EVP for your solicitations, you can use the bid submission form URL that's listed here. There's some information that's asked in here that EVP does not ask. So like in the URL for the bid submission form, it will ask about disaster. Is this a disaster related solicitation? You can say yes or no. There's also other information in there that you can provide to provide as much detail as you need to let people know about the project and how to find out more information. This is what the dashboard actually looks like. There's lots of different filters that you can use to look for different things. You can look for organization, you can look for dates, solicitation type, whether it's for construction, IT, goods, services, those kinds of things. We strongly recommend that if you submit a solicitation in here, that once it's posted, you go back and you take a screenshot as soon as you can, and you save it, because once the due date passes, it is no longer on the dashboard and we can no longer show it. We might be able to dig into our SharePoint list and tell you if something happened, but it's not quite the same thing as proving, hey, it was on the website. Here's what it looked like. You can look at our opportunity report if you want to and see the total number of postings, solicitations by different type, and by different organization or location. You can do that if you would like. Here is our contact information. DOA Hub reporting, that is specifically about our goods and services reporting. So if you send us an email there, we'll be able to see that. If you send it to the main Hub address, it goes first through our certification team, and they'll route it to us if they recognize that it's a question for us. And you can also call the main number, and they'll transfer the call to us if needed. All right, and I'm going to say thank you for your participation today.